guys all know what this tool is?
Sir.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't, you have to know what this tool is. Because if you're going to grow greens on your farm, you would be insane to not have this tool. Honestly, this tool, created by this guy here, Jonathan Dysoner. You guys all know who he is. He's been here all morning. This company creates a lot of amazing tools. This is an absolute game changer for market gardeners. I wouldn't consider growing greens without it. Saves me 100 to 200 hours of work a year. So with Salanova lettuce, it doesn't work quite as well, and we can show you guys why a little later, but I think there's potential for it to cut that. But as far as direct seeded, cut and come again greens, this tool not only makes it faster to harvest with, but it also does a better job at harvesting it. You get a more consistent product. So I use this tool in different ways. I'll show you some of the different footing techniques I use for it. But what used to take 2 guys 8 hours a week to do on our farm can now be done by 1 guy in 45 minutes. So think about that time savings over the course of 35 to 56 week season. So when I'm harvesting it with this tool, you know, there's some safety stuff that's important. This blade is deadly sharp. You need to be careful with how you walk around with this tool. What I do is I fashioned up a cardboard slip that goes over it, just folds over the blade, and I have 2 big paper clips. Just standard big paper clips on there. That's how I move it around from site to site. But when I walk out in the field, you always walk out with it like this. You don't want to do this, because that is a recipe for nightmare. And this blade is deadly sharp, and you've got to keep it deadly sharp. It's not as effective if it's not sharp. I change the blade every 3 weeks. So we're harvesting every single day of the week, and I change it every 3 weeks, but I have a bunch of blades on draw, and I just sharpen them. So I'll stack a bunch of blades, spend an hour one morning sharpening a bunch of blades, and I've got sharp blades I can use throughout the season, but I change it every 3 weeks. I use the tool sharpener they have. It's a hand. What's that one called?
Work Sharp.
The Work Sharp.
The electric one you're talking about?
The electric one. Yeah.
Johnny sells it too.
Yeah, Johnny sells that tool. It's a fantastic tool. I used to sharpen it by hand with the diamond sharpener that Johnny sells, but it'll take you 20 minutes a blade. The electric one is really quick. When I'm coming out in the field, I'm walking out like this. I've got a tote with me, and I'll just show you some different harvesting strategies I use on a bed. So I have a few different footing techniques that I use depending on the crop. For a crop like this where I've got lots of open space, I'll often just work back. So I'll just start and I just walk backwards. So I will walk backwards. So some people, when I saw Elliot Coleman first demo this tool, he was walking like this. He had the drill facing this way, and he was walking like this. I don't like that, and that's just because I like to haul ass when I work. So I like to just go. That's usually how I harvest most of the time, is back. But this isn't very fast, so it's not cutting as well as I'd like it to. So that's the main way I harvest, is just walking back like this. So the other one I do, which is called, like, I think I did a video on it once. I call it like the samurai swoop, where you stay in a static position and you just harvest like this. So sometimes, depending on what other crops you have around you, you can't move as freely. So on our farm, we have really narrow walkways, like 10 inches max. And if I have tall crops next to me, I can't just go back like that so much. So I'll work parts at a time. So I'll cut a little bit.
If you look at the battery pack on that one, inside that there's like 4 or 5 what looks like AA batteries. NiCad, black piece. The flex volt is this 60 volt battery that they use, 2 of them on something like a chop saw for DeWalt. But you can take that battery, and it's also a 20 volt battery with like 4 times the lifespan.
Huh. Wow. Okay. So going back to harvesting techniques, so for the most part, if I can, I'll just go down this way and I can harvest the bed in chunks. So I might have my tote here. I'll walk back. See, that's what I'm talking about. And then I'll come and I'll go back again. So that's if you're really confident with your surroundings, and you know, this kind of crop is easy to just giver with because it's 5 rows. There's not as much to cut through. I'll show you guys some denser beds like that mustard. That's a lot more nebulous to cut. But this kind of thing you can just go, so that technique works pretty good in that context. Sometimes, if it's a really thick crop, and maybe we'll just go over here because it's not pouring rain just yet. We'll come over here. Ray, can I just mix these greens together? It doesn't really matter, hey?
It's all going in the same mix.
Okay. So a crop like this, the thing with a mustard is it's a very lightweight green, and when it's wet, it'll have a tendency to knock over. So you have to kind of come at it differently. If I just come along really quickly, you can see what it does here. It'll knock it down. If you're really careful, it'll cut it well, but you got to kind of go at it slower. So sometimes in this context, it's more like this. Just kind of going along carefully. And if you're not comfortable extending your back like that, that's where you can straddle. So in this case, I'll work backwards. I'll straddle the bed. This is why 30-inch beds are so good. It's because most people, if you're, you know, 5.5 feet or taller, can straddle a bed. So, and you can hold it like this too. So going like this. So that's using 2 feet. So
do you have a Texas model? It's got about 2 feet taller on that.
you know, you still have to bend over with this tool, but it still saves your back a lot of bending over, because to do these kind of greens, cutting by hand, forget about it. The profit margin is pretty slim. With this, I found I can get my price down to like $5 a pound with salad mix, and I can still make money because it's so streamlined. Sometimes I'll move forward. Like for us, especially if I have poly low tunnels on my beds, I'll pull off my tunnel and I'll be in this really awkward space, and so I'll have to have the greens either behind me, the bucket in front of me, or behind me or beside me, and I'll move forward. And sometimes you can cut the greens sideways like this. So sometimes with arugula, that's a classic one. This one's not tall enough to demonstrate properly, but it kind of drapes over on the sides. So sometimes I'll come at it on the sides first. So I'll go in like this. Then I'll come back, go in there. And then on this, if you angle the blade in this way along the side, you'll get that stuff that's overhanging. Because sometimes if you just go in straight like this, you'll knock the side stuff down. So if you angle the blade in here, you can get a cleaner cut down on the side. When they first did this tool, because I had the 1.0 model, it had these little shoes on there. Remember that? Those are, and a lot of people always ask, they say, oh, wouldn't it be great if it had some wheels on it or something like that? And not really, because look at your walkways. Unless you're on a train track, you're not going to have some consistent height. So you just have to kind of get used to adjusting the height, and you know, you become comfortable with the machine over time, but you kind of learn your balance on how it works. And it's not that heavy of a tool. So how much more of the
6.5 pounds without the drill.
That's what it is, eh? Yeah. Ray, how much of this can I cut?
You can cut. What you cut to right
up to there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I've shown you the samurai, the walk behind, the straddle. What else? How else do I do this? Going up on the side. Yeah, for the most part, I prefer to go back, but and I don't even do it the way Elliot and JM do it. They seem to like to go forward like this. The reason I don't like that is that my feet are kind of in the area of the blade, and it's like I'm stepping forward and then the blade's coming this way. I like it this way because I'm leaning forward and I'm more in control of where that blade is. See, that's a pretty good cut there. That's nice and clean. That's the way I prefer to do it.
And pulling is also faster than pushing and it's less tiring. So.
Yeah, totally. So, do you notice here how on a 30-inch bed, there's sort of an uneven amount. So I've got, you know, I can cut 4 rows there relatively easy. Sometimes what'll happen is, like, I can't just, if I go like in here now, I'm gonna leave this sort of mohawk in the middle. So sometimes I'll come in and do these diagonal cuts like this. And the advantage of doing that diagonal cut is that I'm leaving less hanging off on the side. Red Russian kale's notorious for this. It knocks over really easy, especially when it's wet. So you'll come in and you'll do just a real easy cut down, just how I was doing it when I was walking backwards. And then you'll have little bits of leaves all along here, and then 5 days later, those ones are twice the size of the ones in the middle. So you start to get an inconsistency in your cut. So what's best to do then is just go back and cut it again. If you're gonna do really broad strokes cuts, a little bit more this way, like a few more feet.
Yep, go ahead.
So is there a Red Russian bed I can cut?
Right over there.
That one I can cut?
2 beds over.
This one here?
Yeah, that one there.
You sure it's not a little premature?
Well, there is like a 5-foot block next to the high tunnel if you want to go over there.
No, this is okay. It's just, I wouldn't, generally I wouldn't cut it at that height. If it was really thick germinated, maybe I would. But what I do is, just pretend it's a thicker crop. I'd come along and cut. And then anything else that was like leaning over on the side, I turn around. Because now they're all leaning this way, I turn around and come back. And then it'll get those ones better. That way you get more consistency in your crop. Because if you're selling a premium salad mix, your customers are going to want a consistency in the size of the crop. So that's important. And that's what's great about this tool, is it does allow you to get a more consistent length of the product.
On denser crops, I've noticed you kind of did this a little bit at one point, but I've noticed if you go just like a foot or two and then lift it up and then continue going, because the brush actually does not have enough force to really sweep a dense crop all the way back into the basket.
That's right.
It motivates it into the blade, it makes it fall in the right direction, but it doesn't really kick it all the way back, except for really light stuff like this.
Yeah.
And so if you just continue just going, just, you know, mowing down, it just builds up and then it ends up kind of pushing stuff.
Yeah.
And it just, your cut gets really bad really quick.
Spinach is one of these crops for years I have preferred to harvest by hand, just because I get a more consistent length of the stem. But it depends on your customers. Some customers don't care. If you're putting it in a salad mix, that's something altogether. This wouldn't be salad mix material, but that looks like space there. Forget the discoloration. That's a nice size spinach leaf for a salad mix, but you got to get your height properly. So Ray does spinach the same way I do. It looks like 5 rows he's got in here. No, maybe 4. And so we can do half the bed at a time. Pretty clean, right? So it does leave some stuff behind. If you want to maintain your crop well, get yourself a leaf rake and then rake the bed afterwards. So after you harvest all this, you can take a leaf rake in here and rake out, and it'll break all this crap off. You can rake it right out, right on top, just as rough as that. You can rake it, and then next time you cut, you'll get a better cut. Because you'll have, what happens is if you leave residual leaves that are kind of half cut, they'll rot on top of the next ones that are growing up, and then you get these leaves that just don't look as nice. So you get yourself a leaf rake, clean it off afterwards, and you get a way better second cut.
That tine rake works really well too, and cleans up any little weeds in there too.
Yep.
Do you have to wash the brush apparatus?
I just power wash the whole thing,
Straight off the end.
but it doesn't get as dirty as the blade, especially if the blade's closer to the crop. But see, this is the thing with using this for spinach, is that you might have some customers that don't like that.
Like
They want that.
Yeah.
Right? So it just depends. It depends on who's buying your stuff and what they want. I generally find if you want to charge a higher price point, you need to have spinach like that. If you want to blow it out at $4 a pound, just give her. Just get in there and just cut it up, and it doesn't really matter. It depends. You know, sometimes it's if it's like customers that are cooking with it or they're juicing it, then the aesthetics of the spinach isn't that important. So then, you know, that's great. Then you just go in there and just haul ass with that thing and just get her done. But if you're doing a premium salad mix, then you know, you have to be more careful with how you cut it.
Would you put broken leaves in, or would you pick out?
Again, it depends on the customer. You know, you might have to sort that, and that, you know, that's one of the challenges with the greens harvester, is that you do have to be more careful with weeding, obviously, because if your beds aren't weeded, then you're gonna have weeds and then you're picking them out afterwards. So some people I know, they'll go and they'll hand weed the bed just kind of superficially to get anything that was really big and noticeable out first and then cut. But if you're doing, you know, for the most part, raised beds are pretty clean. Like, there's not a lot of weed pressure. This one maybe a little more than others, but you know, if you're maintaining your beds properly with the tarps and you're flame weeding and doing stale seed bedding techniques, then you're going to have a lot less weed pressure. And they all go hand in hand. You can't just till up a field of grass, plant greens in it, and then hope to get a nice product.
What type of cedar are you using?
We'll show you that. We'll do that in the greenhouse. Yeah. Yeah, there's a few different tools out there. But yeah, that's the greens harvester, and I mean that's a tool that's $500. I would still pay $1,000 for this tool. It is so valuable on our farm. We have two of them.
You didn't hear that?
You know, it is worth every penny. I have some people, you know, on my YouTube channel that, you know, the classic know-it-alls who think, oh, that $500, I could make that thing. It's like, yeah, right, dude. You go and try it and let me know. I knew a greens farmer in Kelowna who's been growing leafy salad mix for like 20 years, and he had one a long time. He made it out of a brush trimmer, and it had a little, it was a similar idea. It was a brush trimmer with a little thing on the back like this, and it was messy, and it didn't have these brushes. This thing is what really makes it work well. And you know, before this came along, Johnny's had the one that was just a single blade, and I had that. I used it for a week, and I put it down. It just didn't do the job that this thing does. So if you're growing greens, this is just as important as a cedar, in my opinion.